All right, welcome back to the program. Professor Ken Ife, lead consultant at Tokyo's Commission, is with me right here at the table. Welcome to you, Prof, and thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
You listened to Emefiele. We just had to replay it again because that was done. That was announced last Tuesday. For those that did not watch it, that was the time the governor of the central bank announced that policy. 1 week today. What are your thoughts?
Well, I must say I was actually on a television media watching this when he was saying it, and it came to me as a shock and surprise. Not surprised about the infractions, but surprised about the quantitative impact. 5,000 BDCs that are going to be shut out from foreign exchange. Not that the CBN has any duty or obligation to supply foreign. In fact, I'm not aware of any multilateral, bilateral, or plurilateral trade agreement that places an obligation on any central bank to fund import and export activities. But for us, it was necessary at some point because there was lack of inclusion in the base of our pyramid accessing Forex when it was all with the banks. So it was necessary to have a third tier, which was the BDCs, to nurture them, to grow them, to not only provide access to Forex to the vast majority. And when I say base of the pyramid, there are 90 million MSMEs in Africa, 41 million are from Africa, from Nigeria. So it is really a very important, irrespective of the high tax burden and the low infrastructure, everything, all problems. This is still a big way for us to. So we need to support that. But now listening to what he has to say, it means really that CBN has had enough of it at that point. Because remember, this is a primary responsibility of the central bank. It's a core function.
Maintaining FX stability.
Maintaining price stability. FX is part of it.
Yes.
Inflation is part of it. That is a core function. The second one is maintaining financial systems stability. So we've actually touched the nerve. It's not like development finance, which is a secondary mandate to promote sustainable economic development. But we have actually struck the nerve, and I could see him visibly angry and shaking. So, and the reasons that he adduces are the ones you don't want to get involved in, because when you hear money laundering and this and that, so it's really. But there has to be room for dialogue. But one thing I liked also in your presentation, CBN has taken further action to strengthen monitoring of Forex, even within the commercial banking system. So I think that is the salutary effect. That's very good, because let us see how they actually ensure that the commercial banks actually deliver. And I'm not going to say that commercial banks are saints. They're not saints. We've seen that. We've seen that many times.
Prof, I was coming to that, and let me interrogate further your opening statement where you said that why the CBN, and not during this administration, of course, we know the history of BDCs, why the CBN introduced the BDCs or the sale of FX to them, just like you alluded to, is to have, for the bottom of the pyramid, to have access. Why? Because perhaps going to the banks were a bit cumbersome. Are you saying, or do you see...
with all kinds of danger.
Yes, but do you see, now that the CBN is saying, we're going to be selling those dollars to the banks, do you see that improving?
No, but
or it's still the same?
No, but the banks have been handling the chunk of the Forex anyway, the disbursement. What is given to the BDCs is not anything compared to what the banks have been handling in all kinds of transactions. But the thing is...
Prof, is that supported by data? Because even the data that I saw, the sale of FX to BDCs, in fact, even the CBN governor announced it last week.
It's about 5.2 billion.
That's so far, yes, this year.
But what
I think in 2019 it was about $11 billion or so. I saw the data, I can't really recall, but billions of dollars. So, so much of our FX is going to BDCs. So what I'm trying to ask now is that the banks themselves, do you see them plugging in that gap? Because you said the banks are not saints.
Time will tell, because if they were very inclusive ab initio, there wouldn't have been a need to go to that scale of 5,000 and many more thousands applying and waiting to be approved. They are responding to demand in the economy. They are responding to weaknesses and and gaps in the system.
Is it to demand, or they are responding to weaknesses?
Both.
Or they are trying.
Both. You have demand from the base of the pyramid. I mean, we have a nation of businesses. I'm just giving you the figure. 41 million of us.
But what the CBN governor said, money laundering, terrorism, you see a lot of
round. Yes, nobody wants to go there.
No, what I'm trying to say is that round-tripping purposes, arbitrage, and co. Are you saying that perhaps we're having that increase in BDC licenses because people want to take advantage of the weak system and just to be quick millionaires? Because if you're being sold 390 from the CBN to a BDC, and the BDC is selling the dollars at 500 naira or 512, 515. Take a look at the margin. Over 100 and something naira times the number of thousands of dollars.
Nancy, private sector responds to opportunities. So if there's arbitrage opportunities, they will all go in there. They want to go in there and make money. That's what they respond. And if you want to change anything in this country, create incentive for the private sector to make that change, they will go. It's only what they respond to. Incentives. So if they see incentives in arbitrary opportunity, they will go in. And that was actually what was playing out. But what I'm saying is this. I say that the commercial banks are not saints, and I'm glad that the CBN has actually started by tightening up the monitoring mechanism around the disbursement at the commercial bank end. And then I hope that by the time the dialogue takes place with the BDCs, we will find better ways, if at all they want to revisit, better ways of monitoring the BDC use and application of the Forex allocation. So that will be a logical way going forward. So I will say to the BDC in structuring a dialogue with the bank, tell the bank how you would want them to monitor you effectively. Should they have they are in a position to come back? I think that should be where they will start, and not let it be business. And I'm coming to the commercial bank aspect. Remember, we've been through this before. Yeah. In 2016, we had this.
2020?
Yeah, so various time. And don't forget again that the challenges we had in the commercial banks, even though they have brought over $200 billion investment into Nigeria, we've also had problem. In 2008, 2009, we set up AMCON. Over 6 trillion naira of public fund was used to rescue the banking sector. We've only got 1.5 trillion back. So they're not saints. They all have all that. As I said, any opportunity that they see, exploit it. And so you're not going to say, close the shop, and then that is it. We will continue to negotiate and talk about this and find better way and to ensure that the people who really need this get it at a reasonable price. There's tripping. The tripping is done everywhere. The round tripping is done in the commercial banks, is done in the MDC, is done everywhere. So there are no sense. So I'm saying that the BDCs have a useful role to play, but not to play it at the expense of the core mandate of BCBN. The idea, as I've mentioned before, is to build that bottom-end infrastructure, Forex infrastructure, that will enable us to increase our access to this, and then to nurture and grow them. I was actually happy that the CBN recognized that there are even some of them doing $1 million business. Do you understand what I mean? In Forex, which means that they were becoming successful to be able to graduate from 20,000 given to them to start doing deals of over 1 million each. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we do need them to grow, but not at the expense of the core mandate of the CBN. So now they can actually ride the storm, because you've seen that they are still doing business, and I'm glad they didn't say close them down, withdraw their license.
But the question will be, how many of them will remain in business?
We need to build the base.
The question will be, how many of them will remain in business? Because the CBN governor said over 5,000. In 2006, we had about 270. The CBN, over 5,000. Yeah. So how many of those 5,000 will remain in business? Well,
the thing is these 5,000 they are not designed to simply exist only on the basis of getting Forex from central bank. They were given an opportunity like any other MSME to come into existence and serve a purpose and plug a gap. And then also support these small importers and exporters to fund them to do their import and export activity. And some of them are becoming successful in doing that. These small micro importers and exporters, they're beginning to fund them. And then somebody said, well, the money has been taken away from them. They should go and source their own Forex. And I said, why are the commercial banks not also sourcing their own Forex? Of course, they should be sourcing their own Forex. because I have taken part several times in lecture on export compliance, where it is organized by Fidelity Bank, London Business, Lagos Business School, and Export Promotion Council. I've gone to Lagos to run lectures there. I've gone to Kanu. I've even delivered lectures to 600 exporters of coconut by Lagos government. So the commercial bank should do this. And commercial bank should have a business advisor desk in every branch, talking to these small businesses, going out and visiting them, create the business, and not just go on foreign exchange remittance and do this deal with IMTOs, International Money Transfer Organizations, and do the lending, what you call armchair banking, lending, taking money from government and lending to go. They should get out and build the base of our economy, after the private sectors as well. They should build the base of our economic pyramid and make money in doing that, and not to make money where every other business is going bankrupt.
Prof, you just said something very, very instructive, because the IMTOs, we get dollars from them too. Of course, people like Nigerians in diaspora and co, they send their money. Can the banks also, they get FX from that? For example, must the CBN supply FX?
No, I began by saying that there's no obligation I'm aware of from any of the multilateral, bilateral, plurilateral trading framework organization or convention that says a central bank should be providing the Forex for trading. I don't know about any of them.
So the supply should come from other sources?
Yeah, when I order my goods in London, I go to my commercial banks. It could be Lloyds Bank, it could be NatWest Bank, and I ask them for Forex to import from China or from Singapore. They just do an agreement, spot contract with me, they supply. They never go to Bank of England to say they're going to get it from Bank of England. I don't hear that. I don't see that. So
aren't we even going around the same circle now? Do you foresee a time when perhaps the CBN will just be central bank, and just like you're saying right now, the banks should provide FX to their customers, the BDCs should get FX from other sources?
That is where we ought to be. That is where we ought to be. Even when I go to America and on holiday and then have to go to Bank of America to order something rapid, they just give it to me as I'm asking for it from their sources. They're not saying to me they're going to bid to Federal Reserve. I don't hear that. But that's where we'll be going. You have to cultivate these businesses, enable them to access Forex for you, and then the bank will be at liberty to leave you alone to manage your thing. All these pressures are making the bank intervene more on what the commercial bank, but it shouldn't be the case.
So that's what we call market forces, really.
Yeah, both of them, both the BDC end and the central bank end, they should all be working proactively to develop alternative sources of foreign exchange, and not just this oil money. Everybody wants to share it, and everybody forgets that there are other things we could do to widen the supply base of our Forex.
I was coming to that. At what point, or why do you think that we are at this level right now? You've just talked about diversification of our FX supply. At what point did the CBN get into this? Is it because, of course, we're a very consumptive economy, rent-seeking economy, looking for shortcuts and all of that? It seems those of you that are economists, your economic theories are like upside down in Nigeria and all of that. And when it's upside down, you get something to qualify why it's upside down. So why did it scatter? Things are Achebe said things are falling apart and the center cannot hold.
The question is this: the demand for Forex in Nigeria far exceeds the amount of Forex available that come into the country. Now, there are several sources that are demanding on our money. One is food import, things that we can do. So you could understand why the demand management of Forex demand management in 2016 by central bank, by restricting 43 items. Unpopular at that point, but we now learn to live with it. So it pushed a bit of them, some of them out of the Forex demand level. Then you have the refining of our petroleum that is consuming a lot of our Forex, almost 30%. That you produce this crude, you use Forex to send it out, you use it to pay for somebody to process it, and you use it to pay for it to be transported back, and then you have the margin. And we're paying for that. And then you have subsidy on it. We're paying for that. It shouldn't be. Then you have government forces, of course, you know that, and then you
I
have.
don't know why, Prof, you don't want to say it. Corrupt practices. There was a $43 million that everybody saw Korokoro in Ikoyi or where, and nobody. I can't account for that.
And then you have the
That is
dollarization.
FX.
And then you have the dollarization of our economy, which is the most wicked one is the dollarization of our economy, where people don't want to hold dollar. Even when you are getting bribe to a civil servant, he tells you, I don't want this naira, bring me dollar. Because it's easier for him to handle a bunch of dollar than to carry Kanamos go of naira everywhere.
And when he converts it, he gets more naira.
And people are being settled in dollar in your country. Undermining, each time you do that, you undermine our local currency. So that is what is fueling the demand. People are looking for dollar as a safer way. And of course, the COVID brought some other dimension to it, because our capital importation report showed a consistent drop. In the first quarter of last year, 2020, was over $5 billion. Suddenly, the second quarter, it crashed. It was to do with the COVID. The impact of the COVID, the fact that the foreign investments, not the direct investment, the portfolio investments crashed. They were all exiting the market and heading to America. They wanted to be in dollar regime because there's more stability there, more predictability. And so we started suffering. And even the capital importation report released yesterday, 2 days ago, showed just about $875 million, a drop from 1.9 billion last quarter. It's dropping. So that is compounding the currency story, that we're having lesser and lesser, even though we have managed to have some accretion, as you reported, to the foreign reserve. But that accretion is very small compared to the margin of safety between the benchmark and the current price. Is over $70 per barrel. And that also tells you where can you find that differential? Is it in the excess crude? I can't find it there. Is it in the Forex? You can't find it there. Because they're all burning. A lot of it are being burnt to do this oil importation and refined product importation. So, you can see that. We lost opportunity. So all of these are compounding the pressure on Forex. If an economy is sufficiently diverse, like the one of South Africa, where metal is accounting for a huge proportion of their GDP, you have export of vegetables and fruits, you have all that, the balanced economy. So you have so many sources. So if you have tragedy or any attack or any meltdown on one source, it doesn't upset the whole thing. So that is the reason why the pressure is there. And then, of course, the second one, of course, is because that immediately affects inflation. Remember that. Once there is pressure on Forex, the price rises. People have to go to the black market. You don't have enough here. And then the differential of almost $100 per naira per dollar makes them order at a higher price. And they have to pass through. Inflation pass through to the consumers. So that puts pressure. And when you have higher inflation, as you now have, over 17%, then those will increase the dynamics around Forex and investment as well. They all respond to that uncertainty. So it's a very tenuous situation. So it's difficult to blame CBN for what it is doing, but I still have to say we have to have a way. There must be dialogue in this matter, and then strengthened system, compliance systems, and all of that to ensure that whatever they are minded to give to support the economy should be equitably spread, and then and make sure that people can have a fair chance of accessing it. Most people have children abroad and they have to pay their school fees. Where is the longer queue? Is it in the BDC or in the bank? I don't know.
How about the NNPC equation of all this?
Well,
because I've not heard anyone talk about the NNPC equation of FX.
Well, but this is what I mentioned to you. I said that we have oil going at 70-something%.
They're supposed to.
We have benchmark much further away. You would see, this is the time you will see huge money entering. Remember in 2014, we had $62 billion in foreign reserves. We have $22.5 billion in excess crude account. I should be expecting this kind of money now in the excess crude account. I can see them.
It's not going there.
I can see them. So we have to ask more questions about the supply of Forex. Okay, you've seen the diaspora remittance that used to be $26 billion heading down to 3.3 billion a quarter, and it's even coming down to something. what's happening there? And then you see the channel that is being used, the IMTOs holding the dollar and giving naira to people. And then CBN says, I've had enough of that. Stop that. They refuse to stop it. Block the account, close the account, a Nigerian account. So CBN is reacting to all this. It's all because we don't have enough Forex.
Okay, I think let's take a break. When we come back, Professor Ken Ife would continue the conversation on the FX ban, that's the FX sales ban to BDCs. We'll be looking at that when we come back. Do join us on all our social media accounts. We'll be right back.
In particular, we have noted with disappointment and grave concern that our bureau de change operators have abandoned the original objective of their establishment, which was to serve retail end users who need $5,000 or less. Instead, they have become wholesale dealers and illegally in foreign exchange to the tune of millions of dollars per transaction. Despite the fact that Nigeria is the only country in the world today where a central bank sells dollar directly to bureau de change operators. Operators in the Nigeria's bureau de change segment have not reciprocated the bank gesture to help maintain price stability in that market. Whereas the bank has an understanding with bureau de change operators that they make a small margin from sale of the US dollar allocated to them per week, they have reneged and become somewhat greedy, recalcitrant, with abnormally high profits from these sales.
Strong words there from the central bank governor. Recalcitrant, they've reneged, CBN disappointed. Anyway, we're still looking at the impact of this 1 week after Professor Ken Ife, lead consultant at the ECOWAS Commission, is still with me. Now, Prof, let's take a look at this aspect and see, we've seen, at least since 2016, the various policies the CBN has put in place to avert somewhat an FX crisis. With this now, the latest one, do you think that this will solve the crisis in the FX market? Will this solve the crisis in the medium to long term?
No, I don't see that solving the problem, because the problem is a disparity, a very wide disparity between the supply of Forex and the demand for Forex. That's the big fundamental problem, a mismatch. And so if you want to actually raise this matter, we have to increase the level of Forex entering the country, buy investment. And don't forget, the investment that will give you peace of mind is foreign direct
That's investment, not portfolio.
Not portfolio. Portfolio could vanish any day, just one body language, all of them are out. And if you try to do capital account control, the rating agencies will pounce on you. And then it gets worse. So that's the one that you have to watch. But then you also have to diversify the economic base to earn Forex. At the moment we're exporting, we are feeding 300 million people from agriculture. We're only 210 million. But we're feeding 300 because all the Francophones surrounding us, we're feeding them. But we're not collecting their money. In what we are sending to them, we're not getting it in Forex. They're certainly not at the borders in Naira. So if somebody is collecting it, we are not aware of that. And then we are not progressively adding value to the products that we produce so that we can earn tax revenue. And when tax comes in, then foreign exchange will come in automatically. Because when you are saying you have to pay tax, then in what currency are you going to pay it? So that brings it in. And then also we can export more. But all of these are hostages. The mineral side is not working as much. 44 solid minerals. South Africa doesn't even have as much as we have. Neither is Ghana. But they're earning money, good money from this. Maybe Sina miners may be getting a lot of that money, but I haven't seen them coming into the CBN. I hear about $3 billion a year somewhere in gold in Zamfara, but I haven't seen them hitting the So there are all these are all hostages to the fundamental difference that the gap is there between what we are able to earn and what we are demanding money for. Of course, the CBN might also look to do more demand management, Forex demand management, by saying, okay, I think I need to increase the restriction, not banning, because we don't have power to ban. We can say restriction on some of the areas they are applying Forex for. you know, that may be, but I'm not in a position to advocate which ones, but there may be some cases where we could restrict. But then also we also know that there are a lot of waivers, you know, that can change the equation in terms of government revenue, because shortage of government revenue also makes government borrow more money. And what we are borrowing, a lot of them are in Forex denominated, in dollar denominated. So you also have to provide money to service those debts. So you can see the pressure that the CBN is trying to unravel. You have to look. If you look at payment structure, priority number one, pay the debts. So we have not defaulted. Unlike in the earlier years of in the 80s, we were defaulting, and 40% of our debt that was forgiven was actually penalties for not keeping up with payment. So we haven't got that. So we are paying. We are keeping to the, and a lot of that money is in Forex. You need dollar to service dollar. Are you going to use naira to pay for dollar that you borrowed from foreign companies? So we're using that. And then also defense. We have to import equipment to fight the war. Prioritize. We have to pay salaries. Of course, you pay the salaries in naira. So, you know, these are demands.
So it's a cocktail of problems. So apparently, this policy alone will not restore sanity to the sector, to the FX market. It has to be a cocktail of other things, even both on the fiscal side.
Correct. But the problem that it solves is that people at the demand end, that is the families that are waiting for remittance for their school fees of their children, and all the other things, medical, all that, they can actually be rest assured that they can actually get this money at a reasonable price that is predetermined by central bank.
When they go to the bank.
Subject to all the strict monitoring procedures. So that segment might get a better deal. Okay. But the rest of the issues, people who are needing it for importation of things and all of that, it probably won't answer the question there.
Let's talk about the CBN monitoring of the banks, so that at the end of the day, the banks are not the evil agents, in quotes, that will spoil this policy. How do you see?
What I would say is that let the banks prove that they are the better of the two
evils.
It has to be proven.
It has to be proven, isn't it? The CBN says that they should have creation of teller points.
Correct. CBN is rolling. You know, CBN has a very total control of the management information systems and of the commercial banks. There are only 22 of them or so. So they have a tighter control of them. So whatever they say, okay, let's have it there in a cooling off period, they can monitor them effectively. And they're even strengthening the monitoring mechanism and compliance mechanism. So that's fine. But there's a time will tell whether the bank itself, the commercial bank, will do better. And I know that also time is needed for the dialogue that has to take place to see how best we can still deal with the gap that these guys are trying to fill. Because we want them to grow. We want them to grow and fish out potential importers and exporters in all the nooks and crannies of the country and help them and give money to them to grow. They have a useful role to play.
Prof, what do you think will be Naira's, I don't want to say real value, Naira's perhaps fair value with all those hiccups that we have on the way? With this policy, with banks now being allocated, Forex allocated to them, BDCs not entirely out of business. There have been also responsible BDCs. So for BDCs that can also source FX from remittances or open market and all of that, they will still be in business. The banks allocating Forex to customers. What do you think will be the Naira's fair value within the medium term?
No, the fair value of the Naira is what the market determines.
That's market forces.
It's the market that determines it. But bear in mind, I started by saying that the request for it exceeds the supply available.
So are you saying that the Naira perhaps will continue to depreciate? It's not going to
be a settled business.
Do you think
you have to have far more supply of Forex from all kinds of sources exceeding the potential demand for you to now say, okay,
that the Naira is healthy,
then it's likely to stay stable at this level for that. Now, let's reverse this question to say, how is it that the Francophone countries surrounding Nigeria have a stable currency? For years, it's been stable. They are pegged to euro. They don't have control of their monetary policy.
Yes, but at least now they are beginning to have, because France has said
Nigerian value are changing every minute of the day because of the reality that we are controlling our
Prof, I don't understand. Are you now saying we should be pegged to
no, it's not about pegging. No, it's not about pegging. Even as they are pegged, What I'm trying to say
They are
is that
complaining.
you cannot see, of course they are complaining, but you
And
cannot
France has
see
said,
them.
I think France has even detached.
Yeah,
that.
I know. It's only a temporary. No, see, we are not fetching a real value of the CFA surrounding us. In 2014, it was 1 naira buying 3 CFA. Today is 1.2 to maximum 1.5. So it's like 60% devaluation. But we are not working with the real value of the CFA. Because these guys are not in control of their monetary policy. A lot of their reserves are being burnt to maintain that value. So it's, it's a significant burning of their reserves. So the currency is artificial to that extent.
What else again do you have to say, Prof, as we end?
Well,
do you have any other things to say?
think that
even if
we
it's
need to begin from the point that we are not asking for a right to disburse this foreign exchange. We are asking for the CBN to continue to because the thing is that you can't argue fault CBN on what it's been doing for MSMEs. Right from having an SME window in the Forex regime, SME intervention funding, manufacturers 1 trillion, it's unbelievable. Anchor Borrowers Program, 4 million farmers are getting money without collateral, 3.7 million, over 4 million hectares. All of these are to engineer real diffusion of capital to the base, and then allowing the proliferation of these MSMEs to give them Forex and to support them. So the gesture is there, the will is there, but you cannot let them sacrifice their primary mandate just on the altar of trying to build capacity.
Thank you very much, Prof.
My pleasure.
I've been speaking with Professor Ken Ife, who is a lead consultant at ECOWAS Commission. We've been looking at 1 week after the CBN Forex sales ban to BDCs. We'll continue to watch the situation and see how our Naira will fare at least in the next few weeks. That's the much we can take on this program today. Be the best you can be the change that you want to see. I am Nancy Naji. Have a fantastic day, everyone. Bye now.